it's incredible. It's really amazing. Really? Thank you.
All right, I'm going to call the fourth meeting of the 14th Undergraduate Senate to order. Begin with roll. Senator Jackson. Senator Flores is here. Senator Rodriguez. Senator Messias. Senator Hayashi. Senator Max Robbins.
Here.
Senator Newlander. Senator Jenkins. Senator Jacobs. Senator Ossip. Senator Adams. Senator Abisakara. Senator Pacheco. Senator Perez. Senator Sellinger. Senator Kenna. Senator Zitzman. Senator Menashe. Senator Giesler. Senator Butler. Senator Luthra. Senator Robbins.
Present.
Okay, quorum is met. We'll now move to the adoption of the agenda. Any discussion on the agenda? Senator Zitzman. Yes, I will take that. Senator
Is this just reports
Jacob?
of officers or also just like all reports? All the reports.
All reports, okay. Jacob, you have anything?
I agree with that.
Okay. Other discussion?
Second.
Cool. All right, I'll accept that. Other discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, it will be adopted with a 10-minute limit on reports. Moving to adoption of the minutes, which are still being drafted because I'm still looking for a clerk. So we'll get there. Moving to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to reports from officers. First to Vice President Najafi. Yep.
I don't really need the full 10 minutes. Mine will probably take 5 because I have to run to chapter at 3 o'clock. But just a little intro. I'm Leela for all the new senators. I see so many familiar faces, but also many new ones. I actually was a senator last year, so it's interesting going full circle. Yeah, those are just some of my updates. So I'm sure you guys saw on the Facebook page, we're highly promoting that. We had a barbecue type event for the women's basketball game for kickoff week, which was pretty exciting. And we pretty much co-sponsored with many organizations as seen up here. We did RHA, AUCC, IFC, Panhell, and athletics. And pretty much we provide catering for 140 students, 60 t-shirts. We did noisemakers. Unfortunately, we weren't able to use those though, because initially we were going to do the game as a soccer game. So we got this for the soccer game. And then because due to weather conditions, we just switched it to a basketball game. But pretty much it was a really awesome event. A lot of students came out, way more than usual, which is what I heard from athletics. And we had about 246 students, and women's basketball took home the win, which was pretty exciting. And we got a lot of good feedback from that. So that was really awesome. I said slight flex, meeting with alumni to get them more involved with our events because we had a trustees athletics meeting that I attended, and a lot of their concerns were around getting students to come to their events, and they're like, how do we do that? And I was like, hey, we did that last night. And they're just really excited about it. So they're more interested in getting involved and promoting it more. So that made student government look really good and want them to get more involved with us. So that was pretty awesome. And yeah, yay for campus partnerships and supporting athletics. And then something that's been an initiative of mine since the beginning, since I was campaigning, was doing a programming breakfast, which is something that VPs of the past have done. And it's pretty much once a month, and just an ability to like provide a space for other programmers on campus to get to know each other, see what other people are up to, and like allow for co-sponsorships. You can be like, hey, I'm interested in doing this for like Women's History Month or some kind of event, and maybe someone else is also thinking of the same thing, which is pretty awesome. You can like come together and be like, okay, let's pool our resources and do this together, which is pretty awesome. And so just some figures. We have bagels, so we'll do like Panera. And then pretty much the first one was just me hosting it, so it cost like $130, and we had about 20 students come out. And then we decided that we'd partner with AUCC since it's kind of providing for clubs and they can answer a lot of questions and kind of be more present, active too. So now we're splitting the cost, so it's like much cheaper, just like from finances perspective, but also a good way to promote. And lately, we've been trying to get clubs and orgs to come out, but like as the semester winds down, you know, people are busy studying, things of that sort. But this is something that we want to keep consecutively every month, so people know this space exists, and so that they hear it around, hey, like first week of the month, Tuesday at 10 a.m., like breakfast for programmers, you know. So we'll be doing that this week on Tuesday. And then just a quick update on school and class councils, making moves slowly but surely. We have some presidents in the room too, so they kind of know what we've been up to, but pretty much, yeah, Curtis and Annalisa. But we do like one meeting a month where I convene all the presidents and we just kind of go over what they've been up to and what they want to do. And pretty much lately we've just been doing like onboarding, making sure that class of 2022 is set up, and we can provide any resources or advice that they need. And so my associate VP, I don't know if anyone's, I'm sure some of you have met her, Chelsea Green. She works more closely with them and kind of corresponds more with them to give her some of my responsibilities too. And then they've mostly been working with like dean's offices on different events. I know Curtis helped sponsor the election night party for SPA, and you know, SIS's Undergraduate Council also hosts a gala every semester, once a year. So they recently had theirs. The main takeaway that I've gotten since being in this role in correspondence with school and class councils is like they don't have funding, and they'd really like to have funding so they can take off with these events. So that's going to be something I touch on throughout the year, so that you know when that comes around, it's remember that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been hearing mostly, because it's really hard to do events when you don't really have a lot of funding. But yeah, that's all for now. I wrote, any questions about programming boards, reach out to the directors. They should be presenting to you too. I know that Yaz did. Did Emma come too?
Not yet.
Emma was planning on coming. She's founders director. And I'm sure that will be like rolling out next semester as we gear back in. So that's about it.
Awesome. Questions for the vice president? Curtis?
So when it comes to, I guess, funding for class and school councils, what can the undergraduate senate do to remedy that? Because right now, I think you would have to take money out of your own, you know, office of vice president, and give it to your individual class and school. Yeah,
so last year the VP budget was around like 2,000 and something, and this year it's been cut to about half that. And so it's kind of been difficult for us to dole out funds when we also have other expectations of events we need to host. So yeah, when it comes budget season around April and you're hearing reports from different people on the finance committee sitting down talking about this, just make sure to keep that in mind. They could use a couple thousand, maybe a lot more, but it's also up to like how much we have and where we can take it from. But I think there's definitely room to provide more funding for school class councils.
Questions?
Did that answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Curtis?
Last question. So, what's one like ambitious goal you have as vice president that you'd like to finish before the end of the school year? And what are your initiatives that you're currently working on as VP?
I think one of the struggles I've had with VP that other VPs have had in the past is like, what do you exactly do? Because VP is just like such a broad position, because you work with the different directors of the programming boards, but they're also such like capable, competent people on their own, and honestly have more experience than like I do in programming and things of that sort. And so like for me, like letting them do it they need to do without interfering too much is like what I've seen work best. And so I think just like establishing things that the VP does for like the next person who takes the position is really important to me, which is why I've done the programming breakfast and try to keep these things as consecutive things that I do. And then like feasible things that I've done and want to do more of is like the athletics type event where we bring together so many different communities and different organizations and host something that, you know, supports another group on our campus, like the athletics community. I heard that like the different players and people who were there were so excited to see so many more students come out. So I think continuing things of that sort, and like if we can get like additional funding from alumni or whatever it may be, then maybe doing one more of those events or seeing how we can pitch it more.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. All right. So a quick few things. One, this is the last week of classes, and therefore will be the last week for off hours this semester. So be sure to sign into those this week. Also let me know, like if you are changing up your office hours for some reason, just let me know so I can keep track of that and make sure that you're signing in. Next week is the 9th, which is like right before finals. So I guess I'll pose this to the body whether or not y'all want to meet next week because finals are coming up. Would people want to meet because we may have legislation then, or do we want to wait until the spring to meet again? Thoughts? I want to hear it.
Yeah, I'd rather wait for the spring just so we can drive it all the way to the end of the year. To me, it would just be difficult to talk about something that we've been standing for a month and then kind of pick up on it again.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're all members of student government. So when it comes to being a student first, I think it's really important that we focus on academics and prepare for our final exams.
Okay. Yes, Val.
I just want to add something. So according to the bylaws, like I am required to participate in student government in the fall semester. And if you all don't meet in the fall, I don't have a problem with that at all. Just don't get me in trouble for things that were out of my control.
True. You're right. Yeah. No, that's fine. I mean, if no one has a problem and if we don't want to meet next week, then we can just have the state of the AUSG address on the first meeting back in January. If that works for people, yeah.
Would you feel like
No, that takes a lot more preparation.
just like when wasn't it today?
So it wasn't today because like this is my heavy finals week as opposed to next. I was planning on doing it next week. But just some context, it's kind of just like a huge context and like progress update on like everything that the executive board and my branch is working on.
Yeah, so it's a large report.
So do we have to make, like, suspend the rules or move to do something so that Val on paper doesn't get in trouble?
I mean, you guys are the ones in charge of getting me in trouble, so like if you just.
Yeah, if you just, it's written in the bylaws, which is why. So like, if you're all okay with that, then like we can do it right at the beginning of the spring semester. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that actually probably would be better to have the president give her report just as we're entering in the second semester, so she can kind of update us on what she's been doing this semester. I also think like with more people sort of like now, not like they'll be in a different state of mind as opposed to like the finals. Like we obviously want people to come to this. We really want to like we want them to understand. We want them to be in the right mindset. I agree with like what everyone's been saying. Like I got finals. I'm worried. I'm stressing. So like I think next weekend probably would be best if you do.
Okay.
I thought it was a great job, so let's not get in trouble.
Cool. All right. So we probably won't meet. I'll send an update on that in an email. Also, currently working with Ayana to create our like Senate retreat. She's been gone, like in and out of the office a lot, so it's been hard to work with her on getting that together. So we'll probably also do that in January. the retreat is just more of like team building stuff, learning more about like the Senate and getting ready for our goals like for the semester, but also like doing some of the diversity and inclusion training that we're supposed to do. So we'll incorporate that all into the meeting sometime in January. I think that's really it. I'm meeting with Dr. Ott tomorrow to talk about this new Senate, also to like give her a final update on like the referendum from back in October. So we'll be talking about that. And really, if y'all have any other questions for like me, I'm always available. So like, just feel free to reach out to me. And we'll just keep moving forward. I'm getting the legislative agenda in order. Thankfully, we all met in committees today. So hopefully you all discuss like some goals, and then we'll take winter break to finalize those goals. And then I'll put together the whole legislative agenda and get that ready for the spring semester as well. That way, when we come back, we hit the ground running and we'll make the most of our semester for that. I think that's it. Oh, y'all should have gotten the email. There's a holiday party, a student activities holiday party on Wednesday from 4 to 7, I believe. I forget where. Is it? No, MGC like 3 through 5 or something like that. So it's like right across from Einstein's. Everyone's invited to that. There's a photo booth, cookie decorating contest, ugly sweater contest, sock making, food. Just it's a way to get like people involved in student activities, which student government is a part of. To just like interact with each other, have a good time, all that good stuff. And then I think that's it. Yeah, that's it from me. Do you have questions about anything at this moment? Cool. All right. So now we'll move to reports from committees. And what we'll do here real quick is the chairs of each committee will give like a 30-second update on who you elected today in your meeting and some of the goals, things that you talked about, and like literally like 30 seconds to 1 minute, so that we can keep this brief and get on to the rest of business. So first we'll move to campus and student life. Curtis?
All right, campus and student life. We met and we elected Inuri, class of 2021 senator, to be our vice chair. And we also spoke about, each of our initiatives. So when it comes to campus and student life, the committee will first work on AU dining when it comes to reforming and making it the best it can be for students. We also talked about how Inuri is involved with Greek life on our campus. It's important for us as a Senate and student government to support Greek life on our campus along with other clubs and organizations. Jacob and Bobby talked about transportation and how we can make the AU shuttles run on time, and also spread awareness as a student government that there are, Lyft and Uber, credits, so to speak, when it comes to, getting back to campus safely. There's also, a taxi service for students who may be stranded in downtown. So Jacob and Bobby will work on that. Terry and Annalisa finally talked about the state of mental health at AU, and I encouraged her to work with President Fernandez, and President Fernandez has worked with President Burwell when it comes to helping students on campus when it comes to mental health. So I look forward to a makeup, WCL, what was supposed to happen, and I look forward to what we can do in 2019.
All right, thank you. Moving to student rights and services.
Okay, so the Student Rights and Services Committee elected Piper Eglander via unanimous consent. Adoption of our committee priorities include healthcare services, partnering with the counseling center, partnering with the student health center, expansion of cross-cultural events throughout the different schools and organizations, and then adoption of academic priorities and partnering with the different schools to do that.
Awesome, thank you. Moving to accessibility, transparency, and accountability.
Hi. So via unanimous consent, we elected Max Robbins to be our vice chair. And then for 2 goals, we really spoke about transparency and accountability, specifically week, and we were talking about how we wanted, for transparency, like streamline event attendance information, trying to work with, people to coordinate events, so, Leela's, cabinet about who attends which events and how we make sure that the money is being well, distributed. And then, also, we're gonna talk to you about, kind of getting information about, confirmation candidates ahead of time possibly, just so we can like know what to expect, like, and have questions prepared ahead of time. Also, in terms of accountability, we wanted to work on making sure, like, just keeping everyone accountable and making sure they're doing their job properly and following all the bylaws. Also, we will not get you in trouble. And then, we also, wanted to make sure that the website is updated, and we were gonna talk to Alex about possibly, having like one of the freshman fellow working on like Senate, the Senate, social media until like, the video speaker's cabinet is confirmed. So yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome, thank you. Moving to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So in DEI, we unanimously elected Annalisa Jenkins as our vice chair. And we discussed a couple key points. We talked about working with different affinity groups, well, facilitating conversations with different affinity groups, cross-cultural organizations, helping to promote dialogue between like organizations like the NAACP, but with allied organization or with allies. And we talked about working with CDI and focusing on first generation and low income students and attending their events and making sure we promote their events with social media and things like that.
Awesome, thank you. Moving to finance.
All right, so Jacob here is the Vice Chair Finance Committee. And in addition to our job in the spring, making the budgets, the Finance Committee is also working on a USG finance transparency and reform this semester. We're currently working on an extensive transparency report that is going to be released in the spring semester. The draft of that is 39 pages right now, so it's going well. And we're going to be working with other organizations within student activities to evaluate different reform ideas because there's a lot of dissatisfaction with student organization finance. And we are also going to, vis-a-vis the university administration, work with some, as much as we can, financial transparency there, and also continuing long-running affordability advocacy with student government. So,
Awesome, thank you. And then rules and privileges, which is the leadership committee. We elected Senator Bobby Zitzman to be our vice chair, who will serve as the speaker pro temp, basically second in line under the speaker. And we don't really have any goals. We're kind of just there to make sure that we're all keeping an open form of communication and that all the, like every committee is continuously meeting and working towards whatever goals you want to work for. And just as a caveat to that, you may have been assigned to one specific standing committee, but like you don't necessarily have to just be involved with that committee. So like if you have an idea that like falls outside the purview of your committee, feel free to work with other senators in the other committees, because like you can work on whatever policies you want. It's just you have to serve on one standing committee with like as a voting member, but you can still sit in on other committees and talk and be a part of the dialogue. You just can't vote in the other committees that you're not on. Just a caveat to that. So cool. All right, moving to new business. First, the confirmation of Cynthia Tercios to be a senator for the class of 2019. The floor is yours.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia Tercios. I'm a senior in SPA. I'm studying Justice and Law, and I'm also studying Spanish. I'm from DC originally, and that's that. I'm involved in SPA ambassadors, Phi Alpha Delta, the pre-law fraternity. I work at CDI, so I'm familiar with facilitating conversations that can be difficult. Some of the things I'm looking to achieve is bringing diversity into the classroom. And by that, I mean a lot of the problems stem from the person who's supposed to be in charge not knowing how to handle situations. So I feel in order to improve that, professors need to have some type of diversity training at the beginning of the semester, each semester, or maybe just once a year. I'm not sure how that would work, but that's something that I'm willing to work with, especially since I've been an AUX peer facilitator for about 3 semesters now. So I know how to handle difficult conversations. I would love to help with that. I also want to work with building community at AU as a whole. Like we heard before, there's not much community, whether it's in athletics or in other departments. So I feel like as a whole, AU needs to come together, not just by class, but to connect as a whole. And those are some of the goals I have.
All right. And just to remind everyone here that, we have 3 confirmations today. So I encourage you to ask as many questions as you need. Make sure that you are putting forth the best possible person for the position. We want to make sure that they also represent AUSG in the best capacity possible. So I encourage a lot of good debate and a lot of good questions today for all confirmations, not just today, but going forward as well. So we will now move into questions for the candidate. Questions for Cynthia. Curtis.
Okay, so Cynthia, you spoke about how, diversity and inclusion in the classrooms is really important. So, since our president along with our chief of staff are here today with us, what would you like to work with the president's office of student government when it comes to diversity and equity and inclusion in the classroom? Because we're supposed to have a WCL, conversation about this, and that will eventually happen, of course. But what would you like to work with Valentino?
When you say we were supposed to have a WCL conversation, you're referring to the law
It was
school?
about diversity, equity, inclusion in our class.
Okay.
And that's an initiative you'd like to work on.
Yes, because I feel like a lot of the problems that I'm hearing from my peers and that I've dealt with myself too are that things happen in the classroom and that professors may not know how to handle the situation. And with that just means maybe they need proper training. So I'd like to work with them, whether that means bringing CDI in, and I work there as well, so I can help talk to some full-time staff members to come and explain to us how we can go from that. But I want to establish something that professors have to go through like every semester or at least once a year to know how to know that something is a red flag, or to not just ignore something and say, oh, nobody was affected by it, so I don't have to address it.
Other questions for the candidate? Curtis?
When it comes to professors, would you be willing to work with, the office of the provost when it comes to implementing
Yes.
this policy?
Yes.
And also, if I may follow up, Mr. Speaker.
Yep.
When it comes to, professors, some are adjunct or part-time, or even graduate professors, which require all professors across the board, or just only the full-time?
I would say all, because if you pick and choose who gets to get proper training in academia, then it gets into who's actually a professor and who's at a level to get this training. That's very important. So I would say all.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? This is a candidate who would be joining the body, just FYI. So I just like questions. So. But if there are no questions.
I move to close the floor for questions.
Okay. Seeing that there are no questions, I'll just end questioning right now. If you wouldn't mind leaving the room. All right, discussion. Danya.
So, I asked her a question very about CRP, and I think a lot of us were there also to ask her questions. But she said that she just started, she just joined CASE. So I think that's a good sign as well, because I know that since it's senior year, it's hard to try to be involved in so much. But she seems like she's putting in a big effort to be involved in student government, and she's really interested. And these are both CASE was her first time involved in student government, and she didn't really know how to get involved in Senate now. So I think it's a great thing that she's getting involved, and she seems
Parker.
So as a senator for SBA, she's an SBA ambassador, so it's, she had valuable contributions to the dialogue for school level senators, and of course, we'll start to have more SBA representation in the Senate, so.
Curtis.
And when it comes to SPA initiatives like Pizza with a Professor, during CRP, Sean Matthew Flores actually brought up a question about, how can, Cynthia as a, senator make those, and also an SPA ambassador, make those more accessible to not only just SPA students, but all students. And I think that Cynthia is a great candidate that we should confirm as a senator.
And Lisa.
I also will support Cynthia, just because not only because she works in CDI, but a lot of the initiatives that DEI wants to work on will definitely fall in within CDI, and I think she'd be a great representation of her class, and also the initiatives we have here with anything with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Other points of debate? Seeing none, we'll move to vote without objection. All right, all those in favor of confirming Cynthia to be a senator for the class of 2019, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. Pin the chair, the ayes have it, and she is confirmed. I'll swear you in right now, just so that you can actually participate with us. Go for it. All right. So if you'll please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Cynthia, solemnly swear
that I will diligently and faithfully
that I will diligently and faithfully
execute the duties and responsibilities
execute the duties and responsibilities
of the office of Senator for the class of 2019,
of the office of Senator for class of 2019,
that I will abide by the governing documents
that I will abide by the governing documents
of the student government,
of the student government,
and that I will work to my fullest abilities
and that I will work towards my fullest abilities
to promote the interests and welfare
to promote the interest and welfare
of the students of American
of the
University.
students of American University.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so that increases our number by 1, and Cynthia now can participate in debate and vote. Moving to the confirmation of Eric Brock to be associate member of the Judicial Board. The floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. It's good to see me again. For all the new people, well, for the people who are already here, you'll get to hear the same spiel, but just like your favorite movie or favorite romantic comedy, you'll find something special the second time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the committee. I wanted to first again express my honor at being nominated by the president and express how happy I am to be here and looking forward to answering the committee's questions. I'd like to thank the president's confidence in my capacity to serve as an associate justice. And very briefly, I'd like to give some context to who I am. I'm a Las Vegas native, first generation student. I personally am half African American and half Mexican American. In Las Vegas, I started the first Black student union at a predominantly white campus of 3,000 plus students. And shortly after that, my mother pulled a fresh Prince of Bel-Air and decided for me to live with my grandparents in the great state of Arizona, where I finished the remainder of my years. And in those 2 years, I was censored as a journalist, and I worked with the state legislator and my state senator to draft legislation that would protect student journalists. I passed unanimously and was vetoed by my own governor. Shortly after that, I worked with Councilman Sal DeCiccio, where I drafted legislation that is currently being introduced to the council at large for the 5th largest city in the United States. Though this may mean very little, I was recently awarded Outstanding Young Man of the Year by Mayor Greg Stanton, then mayor, who is currently now a member of Congress in the House of Representatives, and that was in partnership with Rotary. And I forgot to mention this, but currently I'm the co-chair of President Burwell's Council for Diversity and Inclusion. And now let me get into the judging in a nutshell. My approach, I believe, is pragmatic. It's simple. And as a justice, my duty is to uphold every single word, dot, and dash as written and originally intended. I look forward to the questions of this committee, and I'd like to again thank every person involved in this process. Thank you for your patience.
All right, questions for the nominee? Jacob.
I was really impressed with what you had to say during CRP about this, so I'm just asking again. Can you speak to your experience with building consensus, and sort of finding a middle ground, and sort of what your temperament would be if confirmed as an associate justice?
Right. So I'll give you a different answer just to spice things up. When I worked at City Hall, I got many constituents that I worked with when they had an issue. It would be from trash cans to a person who thought that they were stabbed by a demon. And when you get a person in a room and there's some anger and there's some feelings that maybe shouldn't be there when the decision-making process is there, you want to be as removed emotionally from the situation as possible. You want to be pragmatic and realistic with the goals and understand the legislation that is prescribed to those actions. So I think that might answer your question.
Other questions for the nominee? Jacob?
I asked this question also, but I just think it's also important for everybody else to hear who's not in CRP. Sort of, what is your feeling on precedent setting? Are you willing to overturn precedents, or how will you sort of look at previous precedents that have been set?
Again, that's a great question. And I think that precedence is very important when looking and making legally binding decisions. I think that when we talk about precedents, we have to understand the framework of those debates and understand what the decisions were and what the unique arguments were in those cases. But more than often, precedents will take precedence, and we need to look to those and not overturn things that were originally there. Our job is not to add or subtract, it's just to look at what's been given to us.
Other questions? This is an associate judicial board
I know,
seat.
I heard maybe
I encourage you to question
is
deeply.
there nothing, maybe my political ideology perhaps?
Curtis.
So you mentioned in your small talk with Trevor that I've spoken to Star Child about this in CRP, that you're a member of AU College Republicans, and you have expressed conservative views, for the evil and whatnot. So how will you separate your political views from what we do in student government?
I think it's important to understand that as a justice, a person can remove themselves from certain ideologic capacities. But I wanted to read you something from 2 published articles that I have. The first one being from Go, Joe, Go, the case for Joe Biden's presidency. And I say, it's become way too common for political discussions to turn into political censures, a public display of condemnation of one's ideology. We see 2 parties as 2 teams, and us versus them, and Democrats become tree-hugging liberals, and Republicans become fascist, homophobic, racist, intolerant, xenophobic, gun-carrying Trump supporters. And while many of those claims are legitimate cases towards many Republicans who are tarnishing our party, many of the everyday Joes in the states are hardworking Americans who simply subscribe to the conservative principles of small government and effective spending. And then I might add, in my published article on John McCain, the identity of our party has been hijacked to fit the narrative and goals of destruction. A party that once stood for the freedoms of legal immigration now stands against her own people in harbors of opportunity. A party that once stood for the free market now stands for the mass subsidization of the farming industry to remedy the horrors of an unwarranted trade war. A party that once stood for the abolition of her enslaved people and was brave enough to jeopardize the sovereignty of America by going as far as fighting a civil war to protect their freedoms, now attacks the rights of a free and an unedited press. That might answer your question.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Yeah, Sarah.
How has your time at AU here shaped your ideologies or your beliefs, or kind of motivated you as a political thinker?
Thank you. I appreciate the light-hearted question. I think that it's really important to be ideologically open when you come to any college campus and any place of free thinking. And more often than not, after debates and or just political candor, I think I learn something new from every person that I talk to. And it's always an experience to try to explain why I'm Republican. But it's also important to realize that there's a spectrum, and I'm a moderate, and I love everybody who is here. So, compassion.
Other questions for the nominee? Seeing none, thank you. If you wouldn't mind leaving the room. Discussion on the nominee, Jacob.
I was really impressed with him during CRP, and I will say that I continue to be impressed with him. I think he shows the right amount, the right temperament, the sort of wanting to be a pragmatist, to want to build consensus. I think he's shown that in all different aspects of what he's done. I would like to ask, I know we had the chance to ask Trevor, but I would like to ask the president if possible, sort of what made him stand out, why you picked him to be Associate Justice. I'm really impressed, but I don't know if there's anything in particular that stood out to you.
Yeah, there's around 7 applications for associate justices, and honestly, there were 2 on paper that stood out to me. Those were the 2 people I interviewed. Eric being one of them. I think, when I think about it, when I was thinking about who I wanted to appoint, it's like Jake was a very passive role. Someone that had the time commitment and would be able to like be on their toes and have a quick turnaround to like short time like requests basically. So working on timeline. He's very speedy, just like this like little things such as like a email response, little things like that. 2, I think like was just very level headed and just temperament and objective that I've seen from him. Obviously, I haven't worked directly in a professional role, but just like as a first year, like has like a huge amount of like maturity that like I don't even think I had. And I showed a commitment to like want to remain in the role during his 4 years here.
Thank you.
Other debate, Star Child?
Like I mentioned this year, I know Eric really well. I support his nomination for course head. He's a really level-headed, open-minded guy, and like I don't know why we brought political ideology, but that doesn't matter here. But that being said, he is one of the most centrist people I know. That's coming from another centrist, and I just think that he would be a great fit for J Board, and yeah, I'll be supporting his nomination.
Tanya?
So based on like what I heard from him earlier, he also really wanted to be a part of student government from the beginning since he like joined AU as a freshman. So I think that's like very important that he wants to be involved. And I think this would be a great position for him. He seems to be, as Star Child said, very level-headed, and I think that he would do a great job.
Jacob?
Something that was also really important to me was how he talked about how he would interpret precedent. Obviously, like, the stakes aren't like all that high, but his sort of way that he spoke about all making sure previous decisions were read in context, and sort of like understanding what led to that certain decision and being willing to kind of sort of like compromise on that or trying to understand how it can be read now today. I thought that was really important, and I thought that was a good answer. That's why I'm supporting him, because he's a good temperament, and the way he was president and the way that I think he would serve would be really conducive to a successful J Board.
Curtis?
Just to keep it brief, I've spoken to Eric before, and with the recommendation of President Fernandez and you yourself as Speaker, I believe that the Senate should confirm Mr. Broad by unanimous consent, because I believe he is an exceptionally strong candidate who's involved with his government and wants to get involved with our student government.
Other points of discussion? Seeing none, we'll close debate and move to vote without objection. All right, all those in favor of confirming Eric Brock to be an associate member of the Judicial Board, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Can the chair, the ayes have it, and he is confirmed. I'll swear you on this one.
Oh, okay. Well, I got a text message saying you're
Come on back. All right. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Eric Brock, do solemnly swear
that I will diligently and faithfully
that I will diligently and faithfully
execute the duties and responsibilities
execute the duties and responsibilities
of the office of Associate Member of the Judicial Board,
of the office of
the Associate Member of the Judicial
Associate
Board,
Member of the Judicial Board,
that I will abide by the governing documents
that I will abide by the governing documents
of the student government,
of the student government,
and I will work to my fullest abilities
and I will work to the fullest abilities
to promote the interests and welfare
to promote the interests and welfare
of the students of American
of the
University.
students of American University.
Congratulations. All right. That brings our numbers to 2. We got 2 out of 5. What? Oh, yeah, in the spring. All right, moving to the confirmation of Brian Fu to be the chair of the Judicial Board.
Hello, everybody. Hello again to those who are in CRP, and hello to those of you who are new. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Fu. I want to start off by thanking President Pugh, Speaker Pugh, and President Fernandez. Sorry. I want to thank the Speaker and the President for putting their trust and nominating me in this position. I want to let you guys know a little bit more about who I am. I've been in student government for about a year now. I was Senate Communications Director, Web and Communications Specialist under the previous Secretary, as well as Web and Tech Director, which was a Senate confirmed position. I've assisted several senators in drafting legislation, and I've also been in case as a senior advocate and a deputy director. So I've been around the block for AUSG a little bit, and in any position in AUSG, you've got to have a firm understanding of the governing documents. It's just kind of a requirement. You know, if you're going to play the game, you got to know the rules. So what makes a good J-Board member? I'm not a government major. I'm a STEM major. I'm neuroscience, and I look at this role, Danya, and I look at this role a lot like a scientist. I look at this in a similar way. Scientists are supposed to look at information. They're supposed to gather information, first of all. They're supposed to look at it, then they're supposed to analyze it and interpret it, and then apply it. That doesn't include anywhere adding or subtracting anything to the data, just because you don't like it or because you think something's unfair or whatever. It's just simply looking at the information, interpreting it, and then applying it. That's a lot what I view this J-Board position as looking at the governing documents, looking at the facts of the case, and going at it from there. Not adding, not subtracting, very constitutionalist, very, taking the governing documents as they are. This position isn't legislative. It's not meant to, again, add or subtract anything. That position is all of yours to add and take away from the governing documents as you see fit. Yeah, I think that's it for me. I can try to keep it short.
All right. Questions for okay, Sean.
Hi, Brian. So I asked this in CRP, I'll go ahead and ask it again, just so the Senate can get the context. So could you just elaborate on the judicial register, what it entails, and the improvements you plan to make on it as chair?
So the judicial register, for those who don't know, is kind of the policy book. It is the policy book for the judicial board. It's renewed every spring. Chair of the J-Board gets to propose a new one with changes. And so changes that I would include, where there are things in the judicial register that include provisions for sanctions, injunctions, and subpoenas, things like that. I would clear up the language on some of that, just so that the regular student body member can look at that, because as of right now, it doesn't explain what any of that is or what the specifics are following an issuance of that. I would probably clear up the language around that stuff.
Danya?
I also asked CRP, but I just wanted to you to emphasize more about your relationship with the last judicial board chair, Noah Wilson, also pretty scientific.
Yeah, so the previous chair of J-Board was Noah Wills. He was a senior, he graduated. Me and him had a working relationship. I wouldn't call it a deep friendship, but we had a working relationship. Just gonna be honest. We had a working relationship, and so I discussed with him things around communications. We had conversations around that, around digitizing J-Board decisions and things like that. And we got that up and running and updating the website for J-Board information. And I've talked to him a little bit about what it would mean to enter the judiciary. I did that last semester. Before I had some intention of applying to a position, just didn't know which one yet. And I do plan to reach out to him if I'm confirmed to kind of lean on his wisdom and advice.
Bobby?
Members of the Senate normally ask people to tell the order of precedence of the government documents, but I think that question is kind of stupid.
So I will ask you instead to explain what each of the governing documents are for, like what is their purpose?
Yeah. So Constitution is your foundation. It's what outlines the bodies. It outlines the what the purpose of the legislator is, purpose of the executive is, purpose of the judiciary is. Also has something about referendas and removal of office. Bylaws is where things gets a little more specific. Bylaws is where you hash out all the details of things. You've got things like how elections, work a little bit more in detail. You got things about what kind of legislation you would propose. The nitty-gritty details. It goes into more detail about the offices of the executive, things like that. Then next, I believe, are rules, debate, and decorum. That sets how the parliamentary procedure goes in here in these meetings. You've got ethical and judicial standards afterwards, which are how members of the AOSG are supposed to behave on a regular basis in your email communications, in your official business, things you can't say, prohibited language, things like that. Then the parliamentary authority of previous rulings. So that is pretty clear. It's parliamentary authority over those things. So I would say that's a good reference to precedent over parliamentary matters. Then you've got the standard code of procedure, and that also dictates how things work in here.
Jacob.
I just have two questions. First of all, thank you for being here. I also think it's worth mentioning it's Brian's birthday, so I just wanted to know a little bit more about sort of past leadership roles that you've had, how you'll sort of serve as the chair of the J board, sort of what you'll do to create consensus. And the second thing I'm learning you to talk a little bit about is the inspector. If there's ever a need for the inspector, who sort of what the relationship between the J board and the inspector is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go with your first question first. No, I'm gonna go to your second question first.
Okay.
So the inspector is responsible for gathering facts and information around cases and presenting those during formal hearings of the J board. They're also responsible for, in addition to the chair of the J board, working through informal resolutions and hearings. And so they're a vital part of the J board. They're also required under the impartiality clause to not make vocal their opinions on things before the Senate, not run for elected office, things like that, remain impartial. Your first question, remind me?
Just sort of, can you speak to
How I'm
your
gonna run it, how I'm gonna be chair.
Yes.
So the current rules of the judicial register are that if there are 3 or less members of the J board, which if I'm confirmed there will be 3, decisions have to be made unanimously and by consensus. I think that's not just a good feature of it if there's only 3 of us or less of us, but I think it's a good if there's full 5 of us. Just consensus and talking through things and suggestions and processing things and getting everybody's feedback and things like that. I think that's vital to running not an organization but an arm of the student government like the judicial board.
Questioning has elapsed. Are there any motions? Jacob?
Not a motion, just a comment that this is a really important position. So if everybody feels like they have all the information, close debate, but this is a really important position. Do you have any questions?
Curtis?
Given that no other senators have expressed an interest to ask further questions, I move to close the floor for questions.
Well, it's already closed, so
I move to begin the discussion.
you're good, Brian. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. We're now open to discussion and debate. Danya?
So I know him pretty well from last year. He was very involved in student government. He served as he always did the website stuff. I forgot the term for it, but he was very involved in social media to always keep things up to date. And he worked really hard and diligently, and I think he'd be a good person for this position. So I will be supporting him.
Jacob?
But just the first thing I want to say is this is a really important position, so I really hope we can kind of hash out any kinds of things. This is the chair of the J board. Brian is somebody who I think always steps up, always does their homework, really always does their due diligence. And I was really impressed by the way he spoke about how he would serve in terms of it being applying sort of the scientific method. I think often we get a little bit caught up on sort of hoity-toity things, but I was really reassured by the way he's going to approach it. My question is just for the president. I asked you this before. Sort of, what did you see in Brian that really made you stand out? That made him stand out? We asked Trevor that earlier, but I just wanted to ask you because it is a really important position.
So I wasn't familiar or had worked with any of the applicants that applied for the board chair. I think out of everyone, Brian came in the most prepared with the knowledge of the governing documents. And an ability to like answer questions before they have and the answers on the spot. So like even just like, it was my first J board interview I had done ever. And like Trevor was like, what do you think about presidents? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I think he had the ability to like think critically and like provide the answers. It wasn't just fun.
Thank you.
Wayne?
I also know Brian well through last year. I've seen all the work he's done last year. To be honest, it doesn't make you really work to get, like a mental health initiative, to be public, get that, bring awareness to, like, sort of issues on campus. And I think when it comes to him being proactive, fulfilling his duty as a chair, he's really well done. It's very proactive, it's very insightful on all the documents, and I think he'll do a really good job in his position. So, like,
Sean?
In terms of his experience as far as collaboration is concerned, Brian did found the mental health initiative, and in that capacity, he also chaired the initiative. And in that capacity, he was able to work with a whole team of different individuals and then also collaborate with different schools and organizations in order to gain a consensus on a common goal and then actually implement that goal. So I think we'll have no doubt we'll have that ability to bring that experience to the J board.
Other points of discussion? Curtis?
I don't want to repeat everything I said in CRP, but quite frankly, Brian is very involved, was very involved his freshman year in student government. He brings a lot to the table, and he's another exceptional candidate for our judicial board, and I'm very confident that he will be a great chairman of our J board.
Other discussion? Seeing none, we'll close debate and move to vote without objection. All those in favor of confirming Brian Fu to be the chair of the judicial board, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. And the chair of the yeas have it, and he is confirmed. What a nice birthday present. All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
I, Brian Fu, do solemnly swear
That I will diligently and faithfully
that I will diligently and faithfully
execute the duties and responsibilities
execute the duties and responsibilities
of the office of Chair of the Judicial Board.
of the office of Chair of the Judicial Board,
That I will abide by the governing documents
that I will abide by the governing documents
of the student government.
of the student government,
And that I will work to my fullest abilities
and that I will work to my fullest abilities
to promote the interest and welfare
to promote the interest and welfare
of the students of American University.
of the students of American University.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Takes care of our confirmations. We'll now move to Bill 1819-001, a bill to use ranked choice voting for executive elections.
All right, so this is my bill. When we present bills for first reading, the sponsor will talk about them for up to 4 minutes, and then you'll ask questions of me, and then we send it to a committee. Ranked choice voting for executive elections, just in case anyone's not familiar, just a brief summary is that instead of right now where under our current system, you vote for a candidate and then the candidate with the most votes wins. Under ranked choice voting, you can rank the candidates in order of preference. And if none of the candidates wins a majority of number one votes, then they'll get distributed. It's like a runoff happens automatically. It's also called automatic runoff voting, where the lowest candidate gets eliminated and their votes can be redistributed. So in like real politics, I'm a huge like government reform nerd, so voting system, government structures. Ranked choice voting is pretty much the best for a variety of reasons. But since like student politics here aren't really that complex, most of those reasons aren't around. But there are two reasons, benefits of ranked choice voting that I do think would improve executive elections. And the first is that it produces a majority every time. Especially in presidential elections, there will be a lot of candidates who run normally, more than two. And that results in almost always the candidate that wins doesn't get a majority. And sometimes there are 4 and 5 people running, and the winner can get as little as 1/3 of the vote. So if you're supposed to be the head representative of the students to the outside world of the university administration, it helps if you have as much of a like legitimate claim to speak on behalf of the students as possible. So getting a majority eventually through a runoff would help with that. And the second is a slight problem. On occasion, there is negative campaigning in presidential campaigns. That happened a little bit in our most recent presidential election. And it's not too bad, but it can always be improved. And one way that ranked choice voting eliminates that versus regular plurality voting is that it removes the incentive that you have to vote against a candidate, because there's no such thing as voting against a candidate because you rank them in order of preference. So if your most preferred candidate doesn't have much of a chance of winning, but you really don't like another candidate that's in regular voting, that's tactical voting, you're voting against someone. In this one, you can just vote another candidate second and another candidate third. So it removes the incentives that people have to be negative and increases the incentives that candidates have to give students reason to vote for them affirmatively. So if you have any more questions, I can answer anything, clarification.
All right, questions for the sponsor, Parker?
So I'm a big fan of ranked choice voting, like as a matter of principle. I know Maine has implemented that. I'm wondering, so sort of the main goal of the system is usually to prevent a spoiler candidate in sort of ideological driven elections. So like, for example, like 2 or 3, just as an example, 2 or 3 liberal candidates ran against a single conservative candidate would split the vote amongst the conservative or vice versa. And it also like empowers third parties to have more of a say in the process because you can vote for a third party first and then one of the 2 major parties. I'm wondering what the benefit though in AUSG where there's not really much of an ideological bend for third parties, not really a thing. So has there been a situation in previous elections that anyone knows about? Because as a first year, I'm not really aware of that history.
Yeah, so I'll answer that question. And there's one thing that I forgot to mention, so I'll tack it on at the end while I have the opportunity. So I don't, like you said, there's not really much ideological spread among student government candidates, but because we're not really doing much ideological things, and then our politics aren't that complex. So yeah, there's that benefit isn't really a feature for student government ranked choice elections. It could be hypothetically that for whatever reason ideology became important, then it would have that effect, but it wouldn't have it now. It would just have the other benefits I mentioned. And then the unrelated thing that I forgot to include was that our elections go through a university office, the Office of Information Technology. So I have talked with our elections commissioner Iman about whether this system would be possible, because that's important if we want to pursue it. And he said, once I come back from Thanksgiving break, and next time I see them, I will bring this up to them. So he will get back to me about the possibility of it. And in the meantime, we might have to hold this in CRP where it's going. But I'm confident that one way or another, this will be possible because the Residence Hall Association uses their elections through ranked choice voting. So if they can do it, we can figure it out somehow.
Darshad?
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask a question about that because the residents, RHA uses ranked choice voting, and it's they don't have their system. They don't have a system that does it for them. They have to do that manually. So I just wanted to ask if that would be automatic or manual, because if it is manual, it takes like a lot of people and a lot of time. So, and it's a lot. I know that comparing RHA, the number of people that voted in RHA elections to like the spring executive elections is like, the spring executive election had a lot more. So just wanted to ask a question about automation versus manual. Okay.
Yeah, that will depend on the particulars of what system is used, whether it's automatic or manual. So that will be a piece of information that comes out of the month's discussion with OIT and the subsequent discussions that we have. We should keep in mind that it would be preferable to be automatic, so we'll add that to the list.
Piper?
So for the automatic remote voting system, like, does that mean that, people have to then vote again? And if so, like, people don't even vote in the first place, like, how are we gonna guarantee that people continue to vote?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is a benefit of this because it's automatic runoff voting. You do it all at once. So on your ballot, like, I don't know how it would look on the computer at AU, but they do this in Germany where you have a big list of candidates and you write in like 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's say you are a centrist Republican voting in 2020 and John Kasich is running as like against Trump, who's the Republican nominee. So you vote for John Kasich first, but you think, I don't think he has a chance of winning. So Trump is better than Bernie Sanders, say, so you vote Trump second and then Bernie Sanders third, but not at all. So then if John Kasich gets eliminated, you don't have to go back and vote again. Your vote just gets automatically transferred to Trump.
Okay.
Jacob?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this is a really like fantastic idea, especially because if you look at the previous like results archives, it has been, I think, like 2 or 3 years now consecutively that the president has, like, the person who's elected president has not received like a majority, they've only received a plurality. And that's not to say like the president doesn't do a great job. I'm just saying that like if we want to make sure that the president represents everybody, I think this is a great sort of way to like empower people to make like that really important choice. And if it can be automatic, that'd be great. I think RHA already does it. It's a really simple system, and I think this really should be something that we undertake.
Is that a question?
Do you agree, Bob?
Parker?
What is the motive for not doing the Senate election just in the spring?
I think number one, like the ranked choice voting is a great alternative. We go into the governance rules a little bit to single member like districts and legislative elections and like single winner executive elections. But like if we apply that same like real world system to the undergraduate senate, we're actually a multi-member districts. So we already kind of have like multi-member proportional. We just get the top 5 candidates. And then just looking at it from like ignoring the like political science context, it would be really complex to do like ranked choice voting for 5 different winners all in one race. And yeah, I just think like it would be a benefit to do this in executive elections, but I don't think we need to spend like so much effort to figure out a way to do it in Senate elections, where we have a complicated system now, and class council elections, which don't really matter now to like invest effort into.
Questioning has elapsed. Jacob?
I move we extend questioning by 5 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. Okay. Curtis had a question.
Senator Zitzman, which senators or members of student government besides Trevor and Umon have you spoken to about this bill?
I think some people have noticed that it was on the announcement that when it was sent out then. So in the meantime, in between the announcement and now, I've been in the Senate office. I might have mentioned it to you. But I haven't done a lot of legwork on this because I know that it's going to be sitting in CRP for a while we converse with OIT. So I think that will provide us an opportunity to work through that phase.
And then just a reminder that this is just first reading, so questions here are more geared towards just context and getting an understanding for the purpose of the bill. Once it goes through committee and then we actually debate it in the second reading, that's when you can sort of hash out a lot more of these ideas. Jacob.
Bobby, would you agree that we already sort of use like a ranked choice voting system for the Senate election? That just Parker's question kind of, if you remember that we sort of already use a ranked choice voting system with the Senate elections. Those tend to really like come out.
Yeah, it's not exactly ranked choice. It's kind of approval voting where you vote for all, or in our case, up to 5, the people that you approve of. So it's another like improvement over what is first past the post. But yeah, it's similar to that.
Parker.
We could, I don't want to phrase this as a question, but like, these school elections, because they're single member, that could be something to look at if more than 2 candidates run in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that is laid out in the bylaws too, so you could like do that without amending the constitution. So yeah, that is something.
Other questions for the sponsor? All right, cool. Without objection, this will be referred to CIP. All right, moving to Bill 18-19-002, a bill to amend Article 11, Class and School Councils of the university bylaws. Would the sponsor like to speak on the bill?
Yes, just really briefly, when it comes to class and school councils at American University, I personally serve as president of the School of Public Affairs Council. Like Leela said, like Vice President and Jockey said earlier, we co-sponsored an event, the Election Night Watch Party in SPA with administrators and the dean's office, which was very successful. Great food, great time. Of course, results depending on your political ideas. It was a great election. So basically, Article 11 is, its purpose is to make class and school councils relevant again, because I spoke to a former class and school actually a class council president who worked with Vice President Solomon Self, who was the Vice President of Student Government last school year. And what the president of that class council told me was, you know, that meeting with Solomon and collaboration, that there was a lack of, you know, direction and purpose for class and school councils. And I believe it's really important that us as an undergraduate senate, if we're gonna have something in the bylaws, that we actually make sure that we hold the government, the student government, to account. And it's really important that we make class and school councils relevant again. I definitely urge, you know, for there to be collaboration with part of the executive branch, as well as, you know, members of our undergraduate senate. For example, you know, I reached out to Parker when he was a then candidate and now senator for the School of Public Affairs, and I'd love for there to be collaboration between these councils and the Senate, especially if we're gonna have it in our bylaws. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the sponsor? Jacob?
Thanks, Curtis. I know that Vice President Najafi, this class council is falling under her purview. I know she had made some suggestions to you based on what she had read. I wanted to know if you had incorporated those suggestions, and if you had any kind of further dialogues with her regarding this.
Yes, so when it comes to her suggestions, I immediately jumped on it. I was like, if the undergraduate senate and its bylaws is going to require the vice president to work with the class and school council presidents and also vice presidents, that I definitely will take the consideration and the suggestions of the vice president very seriously. And I did just that. I mean, if you read on the Google Doc, those comments have been resolved. I took Vice President Najafi's suggestions, and also Secretary Bailey, Alex. He suggested that, you know, we look at the specificity of how we want the class and school councils to work with the office of the secretary, and I believe that specificity is important, especially when a former president of a class council states that, you know, their specific class council, you know, had no sense of unity or direction or purpose. And, you know, Solomon, as vice president, I heard that he gave each class and school council $300 out of his own budget. I don't know if that's fact. He's studying abroad in Greece. So I took Vice President Najafi's and also the Secretary Bailey's comments and suggestions very seriously.
Other questions? Sean?
Hi, Kurt. So in regards to, section 2, subsection 7, part A, as far as the eligibility guidelines, are there any current eligibility guidelines, present for which, a class council president can base their appointment of a member?
Yes, so I believe it's somewhere in the bylaws, but you know, similar to how, you know, someone with 0 to 29 credits can only run for class senator for the class of 2022. It would definitely apply to, I mean, it's somewhere in the document. I can't pinpoint right now where in it, but it's very important for the Senate. And also Leela and her Associate Vice President Chelsea have done an exceptional job when it comes to filling the vacancies. I think that only the class of 2019 council remains vacant when it comes to the Vice President, Secretary, and Treasurer, and that vacancy ought to be remedied because any vacancy means that there is one less say when it comes to class or school council matters and also, you know, in the undergraduate sense.
Wayne?
Also referring to same sections, I'm more focused on like timing, so I know it's 14 days for both, and I just want to get 14 days to fill the vacancy, and what if they can't fill the vacancy? Right, so that's a, you know, the 14-day period, Leela brought, you know, suggested that, you know, we work on, you know, possibly fixing that number, but it's really important to set deadlines. And if we don't set a deadline, I hope that when CRP reviews this piece of legislation, that CRP decides what's a fair period for there to be, you know, an appointment. Because when I see that there are still 2 judicial board seats left to fill, and it's been the semester already, it's late, and I want the long list to run on time. I want student government to meet our deadlines. I want for student government to be as efficient as possible. So I thought 14 days was, you know, 2 business weeks. That's a long time. But, you know, for other people with their schedules, we're all students first. So I am willing to change that, to have a further discussion in CRP. That 14-day period.
Sean?
And then, back to section 2, subsection 7 and then part B. So in regards to someone taking a leave of absence, so if they were to take a leave of absence and the president would appoint a member to fill that vacancy, but then the individual returns from their leave of absence, are they entitled to return to their previous role?
Yes. So for example, I'm gonna be real here. The College of Arts and Sciences, you know, Jacob, great to see that you're here today as the cast.
As I always am usually.
Remember your, and I appreciate that you remember your constituency. That now that do you know who the cast president is?
Kylie
McKee. There we go. And who is the vice president?
I don't believe they have.
Joseph Adams.
I believe he's taking a gap year, so Kylie.
Exactly.
Curtis, I want to assure you that I've spoken with Kylie. Kylie and I meet somewhat frequently, and Joseph, who's Donnie's brother, taking a gap year. Fortunately, I don't have somebody to fill that. I've actually kind of stepped in to help a little bit. Yeah.
Questioning has elapsed.
Hopefully answers Sean's question.
Any motions? Curtis?
I move to extend the discussion period by 1 to address Sean specifically.
Is there so the motion to extend the questioning period by 1 minute? Is there a second?
Okay, then I.
Hearing no second.
Then I
Okay.
withdraw my motion.
All right. Without objection, this will also be referred to CRP. moving to State of AU Dining, a Senator report, or Senator Hayashi's report.
Mr. Speaker,
10 minutes is yours.
I move to have a recess until 4:05 to get the slideshow set up.
Is there a second?
Could you just do that? I mean, it's 4:01.
Sure.
Sure, if you don't mind, wait. Sure. Thank you. I can share it too.
Yeah.
The speaker email.
Yeah.
Go. It's just a go,
Go.
but it doesn't mean anything. It's just-
Nope.
It's nice.
When you buy something,
Is it because you are
The woke.
greatest of all time? Right?
What? The woke.
What's the
Worst of all time.
Really? I don't know how I feel about that. You are missing the B. It's Rob, mine's Rob with two B's. I didn't even notice that's what I have
All right.
two B's.
You ready? You have 10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes.
And that's a hard deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. So my fellow senators and President Fernandez, along with newly appointed members of the Judicial Board, I'd like to present to you the state of AU dining. So when we go to the next slide, we see the hierarchy of AU dining. So first, Mr. Douglas Kudravis is not directly involved with AU dining, but he is in the Office of Finance and Treasurer, which oversees auxiliary services, which directly works with AU dining, which is contracted, it's food services to Aramark Corporation. So Mr. Kudravis, he's the one who Charles Smith reports to, and Charles Smith and Anne Marie Powell are directly involved with AU dining, which is a subsection of auxiliary services. And I'd like to publicly thank Mr. Smith and Ms. Powell for showing up to the recent Dining Advisory Board meeting held this past Wednesday. So when we go to the next slide, we see all the AU dining locations. And when it comes to having options available on campus, it's really important to have a wide variety of food options on this campus. And, thank you to Terry, thank you to Max Robbins for showing up and any other members of our Student Government Senate who showed up this past Wednesday for the Dining Advisory Board meeting, because it's really important to have student input. So when it comes to the University Club, that's for professors and members of the administration. The pod in the tunnel, that's a really one-stop shop for everyone. Subway, Starbucks is what we call brands. So AU brings in brands that have a national reach to our campus, and we pay for the right to have Subway and Starbucks to allow us to serve their particular brand on this campus. And also, I'd like to mention that Einstein's, Elevation Burger, Freshie, and yes, those three are also brands when it comes to Global Fresh and Pine Fry, and also the pod markets, Pod Mini Market, Pod East Campus, Pod Eagle's Nest in the tunnel, and also Bleecker Street. Those are all of these are operated by Aramark as AU contracts, AU contracts Aramark to provide these services. So Pod is an Aramark brand, and also Argo Tea is it's technically a national brand, but we're not gonna dwell on Argo Tea today. TDR, there's so much to cover, and I won't be able to cover TDR, but when it comes to having undergraduate Senate involvement in TDR, that's why I left it blank. It's because there's a lot of room, a lot of potential for the undergraduate Senate
to really, really have an input and say for TDR. So right now, I'd like for you all to write or type down notes, this specific email, mealplans@american.edu. Mealplans@american.edu. Send any question, comment, or concern to mealplans@american.edu, and your answers will be hopefully fulfilled and answered to the best of the dining services team. And Anne Marie at her dining advisory board actually said, email us if there is anything, any suggestions, any comments, any concerns about AU dining. Email it to mealplans@american.edu. Next slide, please. Pod, like I said, it's really important to have affordable meals at Pod, and also Terry, along with Max Robbins and other, and also, well, in the past, a lot of student government senators, they show up to these dining advisory board meetings, and I really appreciate the work of Max Robbins, Parker Butler, and Terry Geisler for having a meeting with Dr. Fanta Aw, Charles Smith, and Anne Marie Powell about how we can bring vegetarian and vegan options to Pod, and how we make Pod as inclusive of provisions on demand for all of us students, because Terry brought up at the dining advisory board meeting that Pod tends to run out of vegetarian and vegan options. And he even said that, he waits, at 10 o'clock a.m. in the morning for the Pod deliveries to come in, and then, he gets his food, because otherwise at the end of the day, Pod runs out of food. And Anne Marie and Charles have both expressed a commitment to make Pod available as it can be to students. Really quick, I'm just gonna brush through these. News report, next. This is according to AmericanUniversityDining.com. Check it out. They shouted out the Eagle. Shout out to the Eagle. September 24th article. But next slide. Yes, the Senate got stuff done. We got halal and vegan food to TDR. Legislation passed by Senator Hawk and Hakami in the 13th Undergraduate Senate. Thank you. Thank you to those members for bringing halal and vegan food to TDR. Because without them, it would have taken forever. Thanks. Look, next slide too. This is the real AU dining news. This is the real AU dining news. Thank you for the Eagle for making their story so accessible online, because I just search up in the keyword on the Eagle online. I search up AU dining and all these articles show up. I've read articles all the way back to 2013. Read them all. I encourage you. I will bring printed copies to our next Senate meeting in January. Next slide. AU memes, next. Wonk Cat versus Wonk Rat, next. Now this makes me really, really concerned about AU dining. And I want that to be fixed. Megabytes will not be open for the rest of the semester, according to Parker, Max's, and Terry's meeting with Dr. Al, Charles, and Anne. So finally, final exams. As long as the undergraduate senate feels that these hours are fair, Starbucks is open from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m., which is amazing. It's amazing, and you can follow, American University Dining on Twitter, Instagram, and you can find
2 minutes.
You can find all of these facts on the hours, because that was a real concern last school year. And I talked with Sarah Perez earlier about how we can make these hours equitable and accessible for students. And I think AU dining, that Anne Marie took suggestions from the dining advisory board and put them into action. which leads me to my concluding slide. Our next steps as an undergraduate senate and student government. First, I've gotten the job done. I've done my part to spread awareness. I've done my part to spread awareness from my student constituents, ranging from freshmen to seniors. And also, I've advocated to students about spreading awareness about the meal plan focus groups and and the dining advisory boards. I've said countless times, every last Wednesday of the month from 3 to 4 p.m. in TDR, just come in, stop by for the dining advisory board. Second, we can advocate. We can advocate to the administration. So we take students and their opinions and thoughts, and we turn that into advocacy. And that advocacy should end up turning into action. And that's what I saw when it came to halal and vegan food at TDR. That, a piece of legislation, Senator Hakami, who is no longer at AU, but Senator Huck is still at AU, not in the capacity of a senator. But those senators brought legislation into the Senate. The Senate passed it. The Senate, with the help of Speaker Pugh, brought it to the proper administrators, including, the meal plan team led by Anne-Marie Powell. And that eventually turns into action. That's how we make AU dining better. And that's how we make AU dining as best as it can be. Thank you.
Questions for the senator? Jacob.
I just wanted to ask you, Curtis, one of the things that consistently gets brought up is wait times at establishments like Elevation Burger, at like Einstein's. Just wondering if the AU dining people are aware of that, and what sort of steps they can do to fix that.
So here's the thing.
Best slide to be on.
Elevation Burger, guess what? AU Dining bought, those TVs, and guess what they're doing with those TVs now? They're putting numbers on it, just like how you see at the McDonald's in Tellingtown at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, It's the same concept.
I can't speak to that. What I'm asking is like in particular, I think people have seen
Yes,
the new
and
system.
that's what AU Dining is trying to do to reduce the wait times. If you still have a concern with wait times, please email mealplans@american.edu.
I will. I'm just wondering what the implementation of those, like, how does that slow down a wait? Like, how does that make sure the wait times go?
And Anne-Marie can speak to you in more detail, but the kiosks along with the numbers on the screens have, I guess, reduced the wait times. Well, they're doing its best, because if the entire school pulls up to Freshie, you're gonna have a lot of wait time. But here's the thing, I've timed myself, on numerous occasions when I've been to Elevation Burger, and the average wait time at a minimum is 8 to 10 minutes. And if a place like Elevation Burger, which is halal, by the way, if there's a significant wait time there consistently, and sometimes, to the extreme of 45-minute wait time for some students, then AU Dining, the administration should consider replacing Elevation Burger with a new concept, because that's possible. And if something's not working for us right now, we fix it. It's that simple. More to come in the next semester, and I will fill you in on my personal meeting. Hopefully the speaker and Bell, I've invited them both to attend a meeting with Charles Smith, Dr. O, and Anne-Marie Powell. And guess who got that done first? Terry, Parker, and Max. Thank you for showing initiative. And I'd like to loop in everybody. I love, my boss is Trevor, and Val is Trevor's boss, in theory. So
I think
No.
Here's the thing.
I think our boss is our constituents. Can I please ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna ask a follow-up. Thank you. I'm wondering, number one, if during your meeting, you might want to mention that if you actually were at a time, and I would imagine, at least like Einstein's, the wait times have actually gotten precipitously worse. So I would just mention that. The second thing I also think is worth mentioning is the implementation of halal. Senator Hakami was a friend of mine, still is a friend of mine. You know, that was over a year process, you know, from start to finish. So I'm just wondering, you know, like perhaps talking to them about like how to not fast track, but like what's the best way to go about like implementing something? Because obviously like that action item took a really long time.
Right, so I'd like to, you know, all of us hopefully have been implementing our office hours and attending them. And if you have seen, you know, there is a poster in there with a quote from President Sylvia Burwell that says, change takes time. And change takes, you know, takes many hands. So, you know, when we start thinking about, you know, implementing, you know, new solutions, it won't happen, you know, instantly. But, you know, something as big as, you know, changing Elevation Burger to a new concept, it would take time. And that's, you know, up for further discussion later with members of the administration.
Max.
The bosses. I'm just curious, what is, I know you're partially employed in some capacity with Aramark. I was wondering if you could explain, I don't know if you know, what exactly is your relationship?
Here's the thing. I like to first make clear, I'm an American University student first. Then, I'm an American University student government member. And lastly, I'm a student worker. And when I first joined the AU dining team, I actually did not receive any paychecks. Just because there was some, you know, my boss at the time kind of was like an unofficial boss because there was no marketing director, official marketing director at the time. The marketing director right now, who is my boss, is Lindsay Rickards. And I like to be as transparent as possible. My boss is Lindsay Rickards, and she is Aramark's marketing director at American University. And here's the thing, here's my whole philosophy about why I joined the AU dining team. I wanted to make dining affordable. I wanted to ensure that dining at American University is equitable for all and also accessible and affordable. And, you know, it's really important for us here at American University to start off with, you know, good food. Because, you know, if you're enjoying good food with good people, you have good times. And I think that, you know, as an undergraduate senate, if we focus on those, you know, those small things.
Questioning has elapsed. Jacob?
5 minutes.
Is there a second? Here's a second. All those in favor of extending by 5 minutes, say yay. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
In opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and it is extended.
And to be brief.
What? You gotta. I'm getting old. Like, you gotta speak up.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Okay. So Max, to directly answer your question, yes, I am technically employed by Aramark, but so are all the subcontracted workers. I consider myself to be, I guess, subcontracted in a way because AU Dining coincidentally has a contract with Aramark. And, you know, honestly, I work for AU Dining first. I work for American University Dining first. And AU Dining happens to coincidentally contract Aramark to provide its dining services.
Cynthia, yeah.
I just have a quick question. I don't know if this is something you guys discussed, but are they looking to keep that tap and go? I don't know what it's called.
Tapingo, yes.
Are they looking to keep that? Because I know like they use that now for elevation, so that does help with time, but it's like you also have to look ahead because it'll tell you in 15 minutes your order will be ready. So
exactly. So
that way too.
So Tapingo is here to stay, and it will be expanded to further dining locations in the next semester, I assume. And the whole thing with Tapingo is you can use your meal plan, you can use your dining dollars, you can use your Eagle Bucks, and you can use those currency at, for example, Subway, and it will show you your approximate wait time. And, you know, you don't cut in line, but it just makes it more efficient of a process because, you know, your order is printed on a Topingo sheet. And, you know, the workers there can't get the sheet wrong, but they could possibly, like, you know, at Subway, if you're waiting in a long line, you sometimes get annoyed if someone's like, oh, I want, you know, American cheese. And do you folks have white bread or, you know, French bread? And, you know, Topingo just expedites the process.
Jacob?
Curtis, just like really like, yes, just, I want you to answer this with a yes or a no, truly, yes or no. Are the wait times that students experience at establishments like Einstein's or Elevation Burger or Subway, are the wait times acceptable? Yes or no? Are they acceptable?
During like lunch?
Just
in
overall.
general, it is
General.
unacceptable for there to be lines out the door.
Theory?
Just wanted to address waiting time out. Pretty much main reason why like these kind of things like take longer is because of Powell, Smith, and all the other stuff. They rely on data, and if you don't have data, nothing's gonna happen. So what they want is data. So pretty much with the testimony, I know Curtis, you made like your survey and that show that the dining thing, what we have to work on as Senate as well, is to have like this data. Because without data, we're not going to change it. That's why we need the students' opinions. They want the students' opinions. And without that, nothing's going to change because it's just us. Therefore, I'm going to ask you, Curtis, can we have like any plan? Because they're changing, they're adjusting the contract with Fairmont AU like this spring. Are we thinking about like creating a survey as soon as possible as that contract is coming? That's it, to change these things as well.
As an employee of AU Dining, I've done surveys. I do not have access to those surveys. You can contact Lindsay Ricards if you would like access to those. But I do have a student survey that has generated over 100 responses about the state of AU Dining. And I will be sharing that document with everyone. Because when we run on transparency, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it.
Sean?
Just to clarify, so you said because a constituent brought it up to me, megabytes will be closed for the remainder of the semester, correct?
As I mean, Terry and Parker and Max have, you know, since they met with, you know, Dr. Ah and Charles Smith and Anne-Marie Powell, I believe from their meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, that Megabytes will not be reopening for the remainder of the semester. And also, I believe that is the official stance of Mark Story, who is the spokesperson for American University. And that is why I think the wait lines at Einstein's, you know, may be longer in the mornings. It's because one less food option on campus.
All right, questioning has elapsed. Thank you, Curtis. Any other new business for the body? Seeing none, we'll move to old business. Seeing no old business, we'll move to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to good of the order. Any executives for the good of the order? President Fernandez.
I'll make this quick as possible. One, I just wanted to clarify why the WCL event around classroom bias was canceled. So one, it's an awful time for the law school students right now because they're going through their exams and like law school exams are very different from undergrad exams. So we wanted to make sure we could maximize attendance. Two, we didn't really feel that the event has been appropriately marketed. The event is with organized and structured, is catered towards 100 people in attendance. So we want to make sure to really take the time to think through the logistics of that. And there is a tentative rescheduled date in February, and I'll make sure to share that with you all at the next Senate meeting. Congratulations to all of you vice chairs. I know a lot of them left. A lot of the goals I was hearing are things that either we're not tackling in my cabinet, so it's great to compliment them, but two, some of them are things we are working on. I think particularly with diversity, equity, and inclusion, there are some things we're already working on, and if it's not us, like there are other different campus organizations doing that, so just don't forget that be on those things. Third, I think on dining, thank you for that presentation, Curtis. I know personally, for me, it's like, why should I care about this, right? Like realistically. And like a lot of students are affected by this, and I know it's easy to think about it as like something minor and silly. At the same time, I think this is tied to other larger conversations, such as like, for example, we talk a lot about college affordability. So like, I actually was meeting the other day, like they're even considering like removing the required meal plan option for sophomores. You know, so like that is all tied to college affordability, to like the entire student experience. So don't think of it as such like a siloed thing, but how it impacts students day to day. And then lastly, just some brief cabinet updates. Just like all of you, it's finals, and I want to make sure all of my directors and myself are finding out and really focusing on academics. Just something that I'm doing is I'm doing one-to-one with all the directors, and I had them all do a survey evaluation of what it's been like and how they feel supported by myself and my chief of staff. And we're taking into consideration how we shift goals and we shift how our cabinet works for the spring. I will make sure to share that with all of you, just to be as transparent as possible. So thank you all, and have a good weekend. Well, have a good week, and good luck on Fridays.
All executives for the good of the order. Seeing none, any senators for the good of the order? Jacob.
While we were talking about dining, I was just reminded, I don't know what has changed, but Plant Fry, they're using new tenders and they're really good, so I just wanted to, recommend everybody try those out. Everybody have a great, this will be the last time we're meeting, everybody have a great and safe holiday vacation. Obviously, thinking about new ideas to bring to the Senate, and please reach out. Love to work with some people, but good luck on your finals. I hope you won't do luck. You'll just use your brain. And thank you so much for that.
Other senators for the good of the order? Curtis?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for hanging in there. Thank you for allowing me to present on AU dining. I think that it's really important for us as members of student government to engage with administrators and engage with each other, to link the executive branch with the legislative branch, and to, for Brian as newly elected chairman of the judicial board, for him to oversee that we are doing the job that we were all, elected or appointed to do. And it's really important for, if we have something said in the bylaws, that we actually act upon it and we make sure that, that bylaw statement is, implemented and effective for all students at American University. I just want to conclude by saying I care about you, I care about AU, and I'd like to thank Val for working with me and tolerating my, me stopping by their office hours about, talking about AU dining, because I know it may seem like a novelty when it comes to, issues we face at AU, but I feel like, you said it perfectly in your good for the order, that it has so much more of an effect for our students, and I look forward to how we as a Senate and student government can move forward. So thank you.
Other senators, Parker?
I just wanted to recap a little bit more about the meeting that myself, Max, and Thierry had. We talked about a lot of different stuff, but one of the takeaways, as Thierry said, was the issue of data. A lot of people, when they talk about the A-9 situation, there's a lot of assumptions about profit motive and stuff like that, and that's definitely there, especially present within Aramark. People that we talked to who work directly with the administration really didn't care about this, and what they wanted to do was recreate a survey, but make it so that it's very simplified, because as we all know, we go through a survey, you get an email, and you see the about one page, and you're only 5% done. It's not exactly wanting to continue it, so we're trying to make it as simple as possible, because we want as much data as possible as well. So we're working with those people to make that survey. So if you all have any questions about the data, feel free to reach out to anyone that's working on this right now.
Other senators for the good of the order? All right, quick things. Remember, Wednesday, 4 to 7, MGC 2 through 5 is our holiday party. Show up, have some fun. Friday, also I forgot to mention, is the final perk, which student government is also co-sponsoring with. That's happening in the Mud Box. That's always something nice to check out and get some free stuff from right before finals. And then 3, yes, and we won't meet next week. Office hours are still happening at least this week. So do that, and everyone enjoy your holiday break if I don't see you, and I'll stay in touch with emails and things like that. So if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.